What are context matches and fuzzy matches? Coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for tuning in once again. I just came back from an amazing experience at Translating Europe Forum. I'm now in my parents' place in Switzerland visiting, but now I finally get the chance to kind of reflect on last week's experience. And I've just written a LinkedIn post that also includes the link to the YouTube recording of our panel, the youth panel. So make sure you head over there and you check it out. I'm really proud how it turned out. Very proud of the participants. We were on a mission to make this as practical as possible for all the youngsters out there, and I think we succeeded. And also, it's a great event. I'm always looking forward to it. I'm already looking forward to next year again. Meeting all these people is really enriching and powerful. Sometimes you can feel quite alone in this profession, right, working from home, but I like to go out at least once, if not twice a year, to these events, and it's incredible. So today's video is an explanation of CAT tool matches. CAT tool stands for Computer Assisted Translation. It's our main working tool as translators. And I do feel like a lot of translators are kind of investing a lot of money into one of these tools and then kind of using it as a glorified word processor, not really using it to its full functionality and potential. And knowing about the different match types within a CAT tool is super important, and it can help you to improve the practicality and the functionality of the CAT tool immensely. These matches all have slightly different names across different CAT tools, but essentially they're all the same. Like, they might have different names, the match types, but it all comes down to percentages. It's statistical, so I gathered like a list here in my Excel, and I will show you in a second, with the 7 major match types, and we look at percentages anyway, so it doesn't matter what they're called in different tools. But if you're investing in one of the big tools, most likely you see these percentages there as well. Let me show you what I'm talking about. These are all the 7 different match types. So we have the 100% match, the exact match. We have a exact match with context, 101%. We have a 102%, and then it goes down into the fuzzy matches, less and less percentages of matches. So what does that mean? The most likely you will experience, and the most useful for us as translators in general, is the exact match, the 100% match. What this means is the segment matches exactly the previous translation that you have in the TM, but, and that's important, it doesn't take context into account. So you might have previously translated this term exactly. I was just thinking what a good example would be for the exact match with context, etc. And back is a good example, right? Because back, if you are working on something like anatomically about the body, it can refer to the back of a human being or on an animal or whatever. But in the context of something software related or a website, back refers to head back to the previous page, right? So you might have back as an exact match, but that doesn't, depending on the context, that doesn't help you. It can even confuse you, right? You don't want to have like a French, Spanish, whatever translation of the human back into in a website on the button. That would be quite embarrassing. And that's where context matches come into play. We have the 101%, that's the less good context match, but still very powerful. What that means is again, like in the 100%, the word or the segment matches exactly a previous translation you've already done. But here it matches also the context to either the previous or the following segment, right? So that gives you already an immense advantage compared to the 100% match. This is referred to commonly as a context match, 101%, and usually they're quite reliable. So in some cases, depending on the context, maybe check the first few instances, but afterwards the 101% matches can be ignored. A lot of clients require from the language professional that they don't actually check the 101% matches anymore, because they're confident that these are correct. Even more correct is the 102% match. What that means is that, again, the previously translated segment matches 100%, and then it also matches the context of the previous and the following segment. So in that case, you are secure, right? In the context of back, for example, you have a segment that says back, and the previous says, your lumbar spine needs to be protected. You need to use ergonomical chairs and stuff. So, and the following segment refers to the different areas of your spine. So both of them are in the context of a human back, of anatomy. So for sure, if you get 102% match, it will be the correct translation of back. The same goes if the previous segment is something like a workflow within a software, like click next to get to the next page, click back to get to this page. So also back will be translated correctly. So it's very usual, very common that 102% matches are not required to be reviewed, not required to be checked. Even sometimes they are locked in the segment as a segment, so you as a translator can't even access it because the client wants to make sure that they do not get touched. These are sacred segments. Then we steer away from the 100% and 100% plus, and that's where it becomes interesting. Like when we get a nearly exact match, so 95% to 99% accuracy compared to a previously translated segment. These are, I mostly work in memo queue, and they're very nicely displayed on the right side in the panel. So if I get a 99% match, that means that there is something, I wrote it here, that maybe a number, a tag, a punctuation, a space is different from something previously translated. But they can be extremely important, right? These are quite tricky, 95 to 99% matches, because you can be tricked into thinking, oh, it's the same, it looks the same. But then you check again, and actually the plus is a minus now, right? Or the percentage is an amount, a currency now. So these need to be checked very carefully, and they're always like alarmingly put there on the side, like be careful, you have translated this already, but it's slightly different now. When it's a number, I think it even changes it automatically, and usually in most CAD tools, so the number gets changed, but it still gives you a 99% match. So it just says, please have a look, did I do that correctly? So yeah, they are almost correct, but they need to be checked. Then we get into the fuzzy matches. Fuzzy is quite a funny name, and you hear it all the time if you do a translation degree or like any translation course. Fuzzy matches is always a topic, and they are interesting. There are three types: low, medium, and high. High fuzzy matches range from 85 to 94% accuracy compared to a previously translated segment. So what that means is the source is very similar, the translation is very similar, with some minor differences. Typically one word off for average length segments often requires minimal edits to adjust. So it's a bit more effort than the nearly exact matches, and if you are working on a pay grid, so some agencies, some clients work with a pay grid. So for exact matches, for 102% matches, you do not get paid because you're not required to review them. And then when it goes down into percentages, you get paid more and more. I'm not a big fan of this pay grid. I don't endorse it because, as I just said, like, it's not just done with simply spotting something very minimal, but like a 99% match can still be very tricky to adapt as a translator, because maybe you need to even suddenly change the format of the whole thing. One example that I see a lot is when in English you can kind of write 1 plus or plus 1, or 320 plus million revenue. So that means like 320 and more. But in German, you can't really use that. It's not usual to, like, now it's getting more and more used because it comes from English, that it means like more than that. But usually you would have to use a word there, right? So, but you'd still have to think like, how does this display in a nicely formatted brochure, right? So not a big fan of pay grids, but just so you know that this can happen if you run into that in your professional life. Pay grids refer to these structures. You get paid more and more the less percentage matches the fuzzy match. The medium fuzzy match ranges from 75 to 84. So here we are getting into like proper translation, let's say, or proper editing. The source segment is moderately similar with 2 word differences. It may need more adjustments, so you might need to switch the whole thing, you might need to retranslate it. It still just gives you an indication, hey, you have done something similar. Maybe this is a headline, maybe this is a chapter, a summary, because it looks kind of similar to what we've done before. Maybe this fuzzy match can help you. Fuzzy matches from medium to low, I usually rewrite the whole thing. I just use them as inspiration. They can be useful, especially in like sentence structure. If you're not sure if you should use the imperative, the infinitive, you can see how you've used it previously and adjust it accordingly. Same goes with low fuzzy matches. These are really don't rely on them. They are noticeably different, more than 2 words in average length segments, and they require significant editing. So they are simply meant as an inspiration, as kind of a drawback. Hey, be careful, you've done something like this, it's completely different now, but like 50% of the source kind of matches. Maybe it's kind of a shot in the dark there. So usually you would probably not use them, disregard them. You need to translate them properly anyways, but they can be helpful in the context of a whole document. There you go. This is a brief explanation of TM matches. So they refer to the amount, to the precision that your thing that you want to translate now has been already translated in your TM. If you get very high, 100 and above matches, you can use them perfectly. You can review them slightly, just check if they fit in the context. Below, use them as inspiration, and whenever you can, try to not fall into the trap of pay grids, right? When you work with direct clients anyways, do not mention any of this, right? Direct clients do not care about fuzzy matches, near, context, whatever. You are the expert in that area. Of course, keep it in mind and build a sustainable TM up when you work with a direct client, because it helps you, right? You get much more precise and much more efficient as well. And it also helps the client because the translations you provide are consistent. And when you build a TM yourself, this is your property, so be careful of that, right? Don't just give it away to anyone. This is a very valuable resource that you have that you can later on leverage in negotiations as well, because you have a resource that your client is very important to your client, exactly because of these matches. I hope this was clear and made sense. Thanks for being here. Make sure to check out all the TEF content down below. I'm going to link it all there. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next Monday with the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.